Hello, everybody. This is Steve Bennett, and today my guest is Alyssa Monks, one of the great contemporary realist painters, a figurative realist painter who has evolved in her career and done some really amazing work. She is famous for combining figures with natural elements, backgrounds, forests, showers. So here she is, Alyssa. Welcome. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you, Stephen, for having me. It's always a pleasure to talk with you.
We're delighted you're here. And you were about to say, as we just began the conversation, you're starting new work. Tell us about it.
Well, I think many artists are affected by this global pandemic situation that we're in, and I'm no different. And for me, my response had been to figure out how to survive at first. And now that I've kind of figured that out a little bit, like I feel a little more like I have my footing and how to not get sick and not go broke and how to support other people. And now what's happening is my work is shifting, and I'm finding this real need to make work that really is reflective of my own emotional struggle with handling all of the surprises and stresses. And I mean, it's almost been like this vacuum that we're in is ripe for so many new, or not, I shouldn't say new, so many existing difficulties to bubble up and rear their heads, you know.
Sure.
So for a while, like every month had a new flavor of struggle, and it's not been super pleasant, but at the same time, I have to say I've learned some things that I don't think I would have learned any other way. And so the work now, I wanted to reflect nothing political, nothing specific, but just the human experience of pure struggle, of just pure, unadulterated emotional turmoil. So
I got it. So you're bringing all of these emotions and these feelings into your role as a juror for the Bennett Prize. What do you think it does to what you're going to look for? What kind of things you're going to be seeking? Give us a sense of how your personal experience informs your vision as a juror.
You know, I want to step outside that question just and actually lean into it by saying women paint differently than men. Okay, women see the world.
Amen, sister. Amen. Dr. Schmidt and I have been saying that for 15 years.
I know, that's why I love you guys. To say one's better or worse, I'm just saying different. There is a fundamental difference between the way women handle their subject, handle themselves, and put themselves into work. It's just different. I mean, women are, since the time we were little girls, we're conditioned to being nurturers and caregivers, and much less about like an analytical kind of thing, and more of a like, how are you doing? How are you feeling? You know, are you okay? How can I help? That kind of attitude. And I mean, it even goes, like, I've noticed it with my male painter friends when we're working with a model together. Oftentimes I'm the one who's asking her if she's comfortable and okay. Is she warm enough? And is this pose painful? Or I've actually heard my male counterparts just say, I don't want anything to do with that. It helps me if I don't see her as a person, but I can just, see her analytically. And I get it. I mean, what works for everybody is what works for everybody. So now, when a woman paints, I think that we naturally bring a certain level of that awareness of our subject, a care to it, a presence, that's more embodied rather than floating on top or seen at a distance. And sometimes it's not a great result, to be honest. I actually always preach that you need a little bit of both sides of that to really make a sublime effect. So when you ask what am I going to be looking for, is I definitely want to see the artist's presence. I want to see their sympathy or empathy, or their vulnerability in some way. Their
soul, maybe, huh? Soul, would that be a good word? You want to see some soul?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, how would you define soul? That's one of those words.
All right.
But I can usually tell when an artist is really invested, when they kind of got lost in a painting. Maybe it got away from them and they let it, and then they find their way home again.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to a direct path of execution, systematic, beginning, middle, end, and then it's finished. So I like to see a little bit of a surprise, the unexpected. That's really important to me.
So when you think of your role as a juror, there's always this tension between visual oomph and narrative. And I'm interested in your thoughts about how that tension works and what you look for when you look into a painting and make decisions about it.
Well, I think I might have a peculiar take on this, but I kind of think of the literal narrative as just being a means to an end. It's just the gas in the tank. But when a painter starts to execute, there's a technical narrative that's happening. And to me, that's the one that really tells the story.
Right.
If that makes sense. So it's the human touch. That's their point of view on their subject, or just on the state of things. I mean, I've seen people paint a shoe. It's what's the story there, but the way they paint it tells me everything I need to know. The choices that they make. So for me, there's a technical narrative and a literal narrative, and the technical narrative, I think, is a little bit more subconscious, a little more intuitive, a little more on the Dionysian side. It can't be faked. It has to be the real thing. What the painter is really bringing to the subject. So that always intrigues me. And then
so be yourself, I think, is one of the things you said, and invest some of that very expensive personal capital, emotional capital in the work.
I like to see that. Yeah.
Well, that's what you do in your own. You do that in your own work. You put yourself out there, and if you're making art that is impactful, there's always that personal risk, isn't there? There's always a degree of personal vulnerability associated with that, isn't there?
Well, how do you mean? Like what would be the risk?
Well, just think of it in these terms. It's always tough to be criticized, to have your work criticized or judged negatively. And it's even more so when you've invested heart and soul, right?
It can be, but I do think of it differently. I feel like I'm wearing a cloak of invisibility, and maybe it's my own self-deception, but I'm always painting autobiographical. There's no doubt about it, but there is a level of maybe this is where the more Apollonian side comes in. There's a level of technical facility that allows me a certain amount of confidence that it will be taken in a positive light. You know what I mean? Like so you marry those two together where the technical allows the more emotional to exist in a safe place. So, I mean, I don't, if I'm getting negative criticism, I'm not reading it. I'm not aware of it. I don't care.
Right.
I have to make the work I have to make. And it's almost like I can't do anything else until I make the thing that's pressing against the back of my eyelids,
So is that pretty good advice for Bennett Prize contestants? Make the work you have to make?
I would I mean, if you get an urge and you have this vision, it is just driving you crazy and making you obsessed and you can't stop thinking about it. You better get in there and get on that train and go with it. Even if it's not going to come out great, it's going to bring you to the next stop. But if you ignore it because maybe it seems too saccharine, or maybe it's going to be read as this, or maybe it'll be misunderstood, you'll miss the train. You know what I mean? The train pulls away, and then you don't feel inspired by anything. So I would say make the work and then decide later what you're going to do with it. Maybe you don't show it to anyone, but you can't live as an artist being worried about who's going to criticize you and who's not going to get it. There will be people who really get it, and there'll be people who just will never get it, and you can't control that. And it shouldn't be something that holds you back, because that's not why we make the work. I mean, we make the work because there's deep, important things we have to communicate, and we strive to communicate them in a way that can be held and received and understood. But to try to take that idea and make it packaged in some kind of palatable way, or edit it or censor it in some way that will, I don't know, maybe feel safer or more, or less risky, to use your word, you're going to miss the best part. The best part will be deleted.
Yeah, I understand. So do you want to offer any advice? Probably our largest single audience for our podcast is going to be contestants who are interested in competing for the Bennett Prize. And you're one of the jurors. Do you want to offer a little advice off the cuff to the women who are going to compete for the Bennett Prize in this 2021 version?
I would say this. Think of the ultimate bigger picture, which is that art history is happening. We are creating art history in real time, especially right now. This is a really important moment, and artists are recording it and reacting to it and making work about it. Put yourself out there and into it as vulnerably as you can, but make sure it's your best work. Make sure it's the work that you feel is most true to you, that you feel confident about letting it out in the studio. Don't give anything that you think isn't finished or isn't quite right. Make sure you have it just the way you want it, but be as real as you can, because as we are creating art history, that's what we want to make it out of. We don't want to make it out of like these synthetic kinds of products. It's got to be from the gut, I think, especially now, and it's important. And this is such a wonderful opportunity. Even if you don't win first prize, your work gets in front of the eyes of people who care about art and have influence, and you can form relationships that way. So you're part of the conversation.
Terrific. Well, we appreciate very much you taking time to talk to us today. I certainly appreciate very much your willingness to act as a juror for the Bennett Prize. A reminder to everybody that the Bennett Prize call for entries closes on October 16th, and we are going to go right to work as jurors, starting to winnow down what we assume will be a number of really extraordinary entries. So, Alyssa, thank you for your time today. And everybody, this is Steve Bennett signing off. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.